Hey, welcome to B Reads Reddit. Today we have 3 more juicy posts from r/AmITheA. The first is about a bisexual woman who takes issue with her mother-in-law using homophobic slurs. The second is about a girl who told her autistic brother why women don't like him. And the third is about a woman who let her friend publicly humiliate her brother-in-law. Don't forget to leave your stories in the comment section below. Leave a like if you enjoyed, and subscribe for more juicy Reddit content. Am I the asshole for constantly bringing up the times my dad's new wife called me a slur? My dad remarried when I was in high school. His new wife, I'll call her Susan, always seemed to have a problem with me. I overheard her fighting with my dad when I was a high schooler, referring to me as that and stuff like that. This wasn't just once, it was a bunch of times. I'm a bisexual woman, by the way. Anyway, I went to college and stayed well away from home and from Susan for most of 2 years. One time in freshman year, my dad convinced me to come home for family Christmas. I told him I'd really like to hear Susan apologise for her language when I was home. He said she would, but after coming home, she didn't. She was honestly pretty cold to me. At dinner, my parents had place cards that Susan had made. Mine wasn't on there, and I felt like it might have been a deliberate thing. I was annoyed and said something that was honestly petty, but felt good in the moment. I asked Susan, "Hey, where's my name card? I don't see one with on it. I know you thought that was my name for a while." It caused a huge stir at dinner. Like a lot of my cousins around my age and even some of the older relatives thought that word was messed up to say to anyone, let alone family. Anyway, I went back to campus early after that and didn't come back home for New Year's. I'd stay on campus over the summer for summer classes and internships. But then, campus closed recently because of the virus. I wanted to get a job so I could get an apartment. I actually got a job at a grocery store. And I was trying to find an apartment, but it was hard in my budget. I was crashing at a friend's for the time being. Then I got a call from my dad saying he found out college was closed, and he wanted me to come home. He promised stuff with Susan would be better. She'd changed. He wanted to make stuff right. He also really didn't want me working in a grocery store right now. So I agreed. I'd go home. And at first stuff was okay. But honestly, Susan's been pretty obnoxious. She's kind of a control freak about the home, and it's stressful. She's also seemed to want to mother me in a weird way, chastising me for being out too late, for the study hours I choose, etc. I've started just referring to myself as since I can tell it makes her uncomfortable to be reminded of the way she's called me that, though apparently not uncomfortable enough to ever apologise. And she finally blew up at me for being petty, for being profane, for bringing up something that happened years ago. I said that I didn't understand why she was bothered by that word so much. She chose to call me that first. I didn't do anything but use a name she'd given me and never apologised for. And maybe things would be different if she apologised. She still hasn't apologised. Am I the asshole for not letting my dad's wife forget about the time she called me a slur? Redditor A Whole Glare of Cats says you're not the asshole. Shocking that your dad hasn't stood up for you more, in the past or now. You deserve a sincere apology, but don't hold your breath. Next up we have, am I the asshole for telling my autistic brother the truth when he asked me why women don't like him? I've got a younger brother who's 24 with Asperger's, and he's very high functioning, albeit with his quirks. Recently, I've moved back home during the stay-at-home orders to look after my parents. My brother still lives with them. I find out he's been trying to date in recent months and confessed it's been pretty unsuccessful for him. He even got to go on a first date, but his date literally got up and left after about half an hour. I know exactly the reason why, and it's not flattering. For one thing, my parents coddled him since he was a kid because he was on the spectrum and was the only boy in our family. My mum in particular always told him he was smarter and more advanced than everyone else who's neurotypical. This has led to his belief today that he genuinely is smarter than everyone else. especially women who he thinks are inherently irrational, illogical people. So I know how he interacts with women like me or his other sisters. He tends to say very hurtful things first, and when we get upset, he will then say things like, "You are being irrational, hysterical, illogical. I'm just being honest and you can't accept it." This is like his catchphrase over the years, and it drives us absolutely insane. Anyways, when he asked me, I basically said, "Listen, the truth is, your way of talking to women can come across as extremely demeaning and borderline sexist." I told him he acts like he can read every woman perfectly, when he's pretty much always wrong. This struck the wrong nerve with him, and he later complained to my parents that I attacked him over things he can't control. Now I'm in hot water for ruining his confidence, and I feel both bad and kinda relieved at the same time. This was the first time in my life I told him how annoying his behaviour is, because growing up, our mum always blamed us whenever he got upset. But maybe I was too harsh? Am I the asshole for telling him what I said? Redditor Citizen Squidbot says you're not the asshole. He asked and you gave him a reasonable answer. It doesn't even sound like you were being unnecessarily harsh. Also, it's kinda hilarious that he calls women irrational, but he loses it after being told the truth. I'd stop coddling him. His autism doesn't give him a free pass to be a jerk. And finally, we have, am I the asshole for letting my friend publicly humiliate my brother-in-law in front of dozens? Husband thinks I should take some responsibility. Obligatory throwaway, and also, this happened about a year ago. It's resurfacing again because brother-in-law has made it a point to ignore me since, and my husband wants me to apologise once and for all. So some background. My brother-in-law, 43, sees himself as an expert in all things, and grew up with a kind of family that always praised him for being brilliant. He's really not. Personally, I've always disliked him because he's arrogant and always calls me over-emotional whenever I disagree with him on anything. Instead of owning up to his mistakes when he's caught, he'll also pretend like he never said it, or you just misunderstood him, or you're too irrational for him to continue the convo. On our anniversary dinner last year, brother-in-law was sat close to me, and further down the table was one of my good friends who happened to be in town. Well, he was spouting some major BS about stock markets this time. He had just gotten really into investing, and none of us really knew what he was talking about. I couldn't pinpoint why it was wrong, but it all sounded pretty made up to me. This is the part where I could have been the asshole. So, my friend is actually a fairly famous financial strategist. She's been watching stock markets for over 2 decades. She's constantly on TV, and her face has been on the cover of industry magazines. Anyways, I asked brother-in-law to repeat what he said to my friend. She was too far away to hear organically. I definitely did channel that initial conversation, and I did not introduce her as an expert. I won't drone on, but you can imagine what happened. My friend refuted a few of his points fairly nicely, corrected some of his glaring misconceptions. He then blew up, told her to stop misquoting him and read more, and she finally dropped the bomb of what she does for a living. He mumbled about everyone overreacting over things he supposedly never said, despite everyone hearing him say those things minutes earlier, then stayed quiet. It was glorious to see, but it was also pretty apparent brother-in-law was beyond humiliated, because he made a lame excuse about how his stomach hurts, and left dinner not 15 minutes later. It's been a long time now, but brother-in-law avoids me like the plague, and my husband wants us to resolve things. He thinks I should take the initiative to apologise, because I was the one that started it by directing the convo to someone I knew would be an expert over my brother-in-law. Am I the asshole for what I did? I didn't need to make the convo happen, but it just seemed so perfect at the time I couldn't resist. But I admit, had I not done it, none of this would be happening, and it does feel petty looking back. Redditor JezGoLightly says you're not the asshole. Your brother-in-law is probably the way he is because his family coddles his precious little ego. He needs to grow up. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed, don't forget to drop a like down below. And if you'd like to see more, check out some of the videos on screen now, and subscribe for more juicy Reddit content.